I think I'm getting sick. So of course, we're gonna talk about everything I read in July. It is August 5th. In like the last half hour at work, I just started feeling a little funky. And the reason why I probably have gotten sick is that this past Sunday, my coworker and I went to KCON. If you don't know what KCON is, it is a K-pop, Korean beauty, Korean food convention with attached concerts. So there's 3 days of the convention and 3 nights of concerts. So on Sunday we went to the convention and then we did the concert Sunday night. And we picked Sunday because of the one group artist that I wanted to see. 2 members of the group 17, Hoshi and Woozy. Hoshi is my absolute favorite gremlin. So I haven't seen 17 live yet. And they are both actually doing their mandatory military enlistment in literally next month. So this was the last chance to see them for like 2 years essentially. So my coworker, God love her, she's so enabling. She's whipped out her credit card one day at work. She's like, let's go. She's always wanted to go since she was a teenager. And it was a really great experience. We had a good day. We bought a lot of stuff. We got some K-beauty. We ate some good food, did a lot of walking. The concert was great. I haven't been to a concert since 2019. And my voice is still kind of shot because I did a lot of screaming. I didn't know I still had it in me. My coworker was so fantastic. She said, I'll film everything. You just have fun. Well, for Hoshi Woozy. She said, I'll film it. You just have fun. So I was able to just jump and dance and scream, sing along. And it was a lot of fun. A lot of other groups there too that I really liked. So a few songs also where I was like yelling and screaming along. We're going to get to my July reads. This is my graphic on Storygraph. I will put it up here. Only 2 of these were actual physical reads, but I don't want to go get the books. They're out there. Like I said, I'm sick. I'm trying to keep the energy up, okay? Energy. We're gonna do energy. The first thing I read in July was a 4-star read, and that is, I'm just realizing that with this graphic up, I can't actually tap on them to look at the books. Doing great here. Okay, the first thing I read in July was Fantastic Four Volume 1, the 2022 series being written by Ryan North. So another Volume 1. Don't get me started on Marvel and their relaunching of... Don't get me started. So I read this in preparation for the movie, and I fucking love the movie. I have a whole vlog for July that I was going to start editing this week. But you know, now if I'm sick, that's not gonna happen. So, but spoiler alert, I loved the movie. I started crying about 5 to 10 minutes in, happy crying, and didn't really stop. And it was just, as a Fantastic Four fan, this like, they mean a lot to me, and them being portrayed a specific way means a lot to me. And this did it. They understood the assignment. And I was so happy. So I'm very glad that I finally have a good Fantastic Four movie. And it was good. It was so good. So I read Fantastic Four Volume 1. This is Whatever Happened to the Fantastic Four. This is the series that Ryan North is writing. So in this series, we kick off where something happened and most of the world is pissed off at the Fantastic Four. They're kind of like separated, going off and doing their own thing in the wake of whatever happened. We do find out in this first volume, within 2 or 3 issues, what happened. And it is such a Reed Richards thing. It is such a Reed Richards thing. And I really liked it because part of what I think a lot of people who have tried to do Fantastic Four in the past, and like when it misses for me, is that they forget that first and foremost, Fantastic Four are an adventure science-y family. They're adventure science. They want to have, like, they have adventures. Like, I don't know how else to put it. Like, yeah, sure, you know, there's Galactus and, you know, Reed saves the world all the time, Illuminati, blah, 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 blah. But they work the best for me when an author remembers that they go around helping people, having adventures, doing science, being a family. And Ryan North gets that here. Even though they are separate to start with, they get back together pretty quickly. And it's so good. And tied into a lot of that adventure stuff is that we do get a lot of emotion too, because of, you know, the thing that happened. And it's good. It's just so good. Ryan North does really well with like showing off their powers and doing a lot of fun things. So that was really fun. I meant to read more. It just didn't happen. So if I am sick and I do have to stay home from work tomorrow, I will probably just read some more of the series. I have it on Marvel Unlimited, so I don't know what's stopping me. Okay, next then I read The Compound by Aisling Rawle. This is a book that is semi-dystopian, and it takes place in this compound where essentially we are following a cast on a reality show. And it's very, I guess, Love Island-ish, I think is the inspiration. I haven't watched Love Island or any of the shows like that, but we follow these characters as they go to this compound that is kind of like isolated in the desert. We get snippets of like what's going on with the world around them, but the focus is on the compound and the characters who show up. So there's 10 girls and 10 guys, and they just have to outlast everybody else and not get kicked off the compound. I still don't know how I feel about it. So it was very readable. I think I read it in like 2 chunks. Got it through the library. I read a whole chunk of it, like 40% or something like that. Put it down for a while and then picked it up again and like blasted through it again. And I think it is doing a lot to have some commentary on shows like Love Island and reality and how we perceive the world around us because of reality shows. And it has a lot to say about capitalism and how reality shows like this really tie into capitalism. And it's just kind of oddly dreamlike. The main character, our narrator, it's a very jarring style to get into at first, but once you take a few pages, you take the time to understand this style that you're reading, it feels off-putting, but it's for a purpose. And after a while, I stopped noticing the style of the writing and was just in it. And it's just so I gave it a 3.5 because I could see everything that it was doing. I could understand all the themes that were being hit, but we got to the end of the book and I was like, okay, so what? I kind of understand the author's stance. I don't know that I felt much conviction from the author, or maybe this is just like she is a debut author. This is a debut novel. Maybe it's just a debut thing where the author, like, as I was reading it, I could see, okay, the author's laying out all these themes and stuff. And then we get to the end and it just kind of ends. And I'm just like, so what's your point? I kind of maybe get your stance on it, but it felt like a very shallow, obvious stance. I think that's my issue. It was just a very easy, obvious stance. And maybe the ending was supposed to be ambiguous. If so, why? Why do that ambiguous ending? But yeah, so it's worth a read. Like as a novel, as a debut novel, it is solid. It is readable. It is compelling. It is a debut novel. So if this author does go on to write more in this vein, I am interested. I will check out whatever she writes next through the library. The next thing I read was Meat Eaters by Meredith McClaren. I got this as an e-arc from NetGalley. So thank you to NetGalley and Oni Press for this e-arc. I got it because look at the cover. And the synopsis is essentially this girl, she wakes up and she's craving meat. She doesn't have a heartbeat. She has to figure out what's going on. The story follows her as she's trying to figure out this new life. Like she's kind of stagnating and this sort of like bumps her into action. The problem I had with this almost from the very start is that things just happen. She's literally at a gas station and 2 guys in the car over at the next gas pump are like, hey, are you a vampire? And they're like, and she's like, what? How? What? And they're like, oh, no, it's totally cool. We're vampires too. You know what? why don't you, you're a new one, aren't you? You're a baby, aren't you? Why don't you go to this bar over here at the edge of town, and they'll tell you it's a vampire, it's a paranormal bar. They'll tell you all about it. Literally, she just goes to a gas station, is pumping gas, and then two dudes are like, hey, are you a vampire? Then she goes to the bar and she stumbles across two characters who she ends up becoming friends with, and they kind of form a found family. And then there's some kind of creature stalking the woods, and things just kind of happened, and it was boring on top of it. There was nothing interesting here. There really wasn't. The found family was fine. Her journey, I don't think there's much of a journey. The mystery of how she became what she is, I don't really understand. She's not a vampire. I don't really understand how she got changed. And so it left me wanting more. So I gave it 2 stars, which is unfortunate because it was an E-arc and I wish I could have enjoyed it more, but it does not live up to this cover whatsoever. Next, I read One Level Down, and this came out of nowhere because early-ish July, I found a new indie bookstore 1 town over from me, which means it's literally under 10-minute drive away. And that is a big deal for where I live. Yes, the Los Angeles area has a lot of bookstores, but the problem is it's the Los Angeles area. If I want to go to a good indie bookstore, I have to drive 30 minutes minimum. Literally, when I found them, when I went in, she was like, oh yeah, we've only been open, it'll be a month tomorrow. And she explained, they're small, they're new. They don't have a lot of stock because she doesn't have a lot of income at the moment. It's all her savings. But you know, if you want to pre-order or whatever, we can do it through her. So, and then what really drew me to it was they have book clubs, and they had a sci-fi book club. It's a sci-fi book club. I've been wanting to join a book club, an in-person book club, for so long, but they all end up being romance or romantasy, and that's not what I want. So I finally just stumbled upon this bookstore, and they have a sci-fi book club. So I bought the book, and the book they were reading for the first sci-fi book club is One Level Down by Mary G. Thompson. This is a novella about a story where a 58-year-old woman they're living in this simulation, and her father, whom she calls daddy, forces her to be his like 6-year-old. How old is she supposed to be? 5 years old. He forces her to stay 5 years old forever because Ella, the main character, she was created because his original daughter Ella died, and he wanted his daughter back, and he wanted her at this perfect age. So she is forced to act like this 5-year-old, and has had to. She's 58 years old mentally, but also not, because she has to act like she's 5 the whole time. So it creates this very strange narrative dichotomy, because you have narrative where we're in her head and she's 58 years old, but she also has to think like she's 5 years old to convincingly act like she's 5 years old to her father. I'm not gonna fucking call him daddy. That was one thing a lot of us did not like about this, is that she called him daddy the entire time. Never in a sexual way. Never in a sexual way. But it was just like, for a lot of us, like it was just got grating after a while. None of us really loved it. I think some of us, like a couple of us, liked it, but a lot of us were just mostly disappointed. I personally gave it 2.5 stars because there's the bones of something good here, and there was a part in the story where it really started ramping up to something interesting, and then just fucking fell flat on his face. The last like 30 to 40 pages, we all agreed there's this thing that happens, and then there's a hard shift, and we all were expecting something different, but then something else. We turn the page to the next section and it's something else, and all of us were like, what? So it still led to a really good conversation. We had a really, really good host. She's fantastic. So it was a really good conversation, but not the greatest most successful book that we have read. So, like I said, 2.5 stars. But next month we're reading Dungeon Crawler Carl, which I'm so excited. I bought the book, bought for the next book club like that night. So yeah, I am so excited that I have an in-person book club and they have other events. I may try to do the fantasy book club next month because they're doing the Enchanted Greenhouse, which is the sequel to the Spell Shop, which I really want. So, but it depends on what time it is. Also, the book club happens at a time that I can actually attend, which is a huge thing too. I've looked at any book clubs that I could maybe go to. They're always happening like Monday at fucking 5 p.m. Monday at 5 p.m. What the fuck is that? Whatever. Yeah, while the book was not great, everything around it was good. So at a very minimum, I'm gonna keep the book because it's a memory of this first book club. So there's that. Next, I read Atonement Sky by Nalini Singh. This is book 9 in Sci-Changeling Trinity, which is a second series in the entire Sci-Changeling world. This I had a good time with. I got the audio immediately. I really liked this one. I like the couple. I don't like how they started out. Ellery and Adam, the couple, they ran into each other when they were younger and something happened and Ellery betrays Adam. And Adam has been carrying the anger of that betrayal his whole life. Ellery has been like locking away the guilt of that betrayal her whole life because she's a Psy. And when they meet each other again, Adam is furious and like he feels betrayed. He's furious, like he'll never forgive her. He threatens to kill her. And Ellery is like, yeah, I deserve it. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then as we get more flashbacks to what happened that first time, they literally met briefly in the morning and then something happens that he blames Ellery for. And then that's it. They never see each other again. And then I was like, oh, there was a mating bond thing that happened. And that like, so that kind of snapped things into place for me before we finally get the turn where Adam like realizes how much of an idiot he's being and he blah blah blah. So I did like their romance. This did the thing that Nalini has been doing this entire Sci-Changeling Trinity series, where there's some kind of fucking countdown to disaster, especially with the Psy. Every Psy romance, one of the humans had the same thing happening. There's some kind of countdown to where they'll die or their minds will be completely broken, etc. And it's just like, we know it's not going to happen. We know they're going to come up with something. So it's kind of ridiculous, but I didn't mind it as much here because Ellery is a justice Psy, and in that countdown and everything going on with her mind, we get a lot more information about the justice Psy, the J Psy, and the way that they save Ellery's mind has massive implications for the world at large, like huge world implications, which I really am excited for to see what will happen there. So as a whole, I give this 4 stars. Good romance. There was a side romance that kind of came out of nowhere, but it also led to like the macro plot stuff, so I didn't mind it as much. But yeah, good entry. And now I have to wait even longer for the next one. Okay, next I read a short story as I continue on reading short stories, etc. for all the awards. So like the Hugos, the Nebulas, the Ignite Awards. There's another one I added. I forget which one it was. I'm trying to read all the short stories, at a minimum the short stories and novelettes. So I read We Will Teach You How to Read, We Will Teach You How to Read by Caroline M. Yoachim. This is a short story that I think it's very interesting. It's very, very experimental. I think to the detriment of it being an actual story. I think this could be better served as being called like experimental poetry, maybe. Essentially, the short story is from the point of view of some creature who perceives the world very vastly different the way we do, and it's so hard to explain without you going to read it. The short story, this one and other ones I read, I'm going to link it down below. I really believe you just really need to go read it to experience it for yourself. This creature is, I think, their race is dying off or something, and they're desperate to impart knowledge to us, the reader, but we don't read the way they do. We don't perceive knowledge and facts and everything the way they do. And they're going to lose everything that makes them who they are if we don't learn how to read the way they do. So the text itself is experimental in the way where it's like the creature is actually writing this text in a way where it's trying to teach you how to read, and in a way where it's trying to make you read two streams at the same time, which is where I say the experimental, like poetry-like nature of it comes in. It is so hard to describe. So very experimental. And while I believe that it's very interesting in how experimental it was, the fact that you are, taking part in the story and experience as it's happening took away from me from any kind of emotional connection or anything that I had. Even though I, as the reader, am like mentally directly interacting with the story, I still didn't really feel a lot of connection at all, because so much of it was in the experimental nature of being taught how to read. And so it was this weird juxtaposition. And I gave it 2.5 stars. Like, I didn't like it, and it wasn't just okay. So somewhere in between. So I feel if the Omelas story doesn't win the Hugo, I feel like this one has a good chance of winning. So we will see. Okay, next I read another graphic novel arc. This is This Place Kills Me by Mariko Tamaki with art by Nicole Gu. This was a wonderful surprise. I've read Mariko Tamaki in the past, and I know that she is a great writer. I know that, but it's just been a while. And I was surprised at how much I really liked this. This is a story of a young woman in the 90s a young girl, teen, who goes to an all-girls boarding school. And there is a theater society that's very popular. And they're putting on Romeo and Juliet. The main girl who's playing Juliet is found dead in the woods. The police write it off as a suicide, but our main character finds something fishy about it. And while the synopsis makes you kind of think she's taking it on as a detective kind of situation, I don't think it is. I think she is kind of like stumbling into figuring out something weird is going on. The main thrust of the story really is about the main character, Abby, and her not fitting into this school. There's a lot of queerphobia. There's a lot of bullying. There's a lot going on. And I think I put in my Goodreads review, I said something like, the past makes us who we are. And I am so sorry to Mariko Tamaki and whatever she went through when she was a young teenager, but it has led to some fantastic art. And if something like this is close to being anywhere near what she went through, I feel for her so hard. This is so, like, I connected emotionally to the point where like my heart hurt at times. But I think it was just well done. And because this is an arc, the art was pretty unfinished, but even unfinished, like mostly black and white, the text wasn't good text. But Nicole Gu's art is really good, like even without color. Like, she plays with space and movement in a way that really works. And I really like Abby's character design, and it was really good. I gave it 5 stars. Even if you are not a graphic novel reader, you're not a YA reader, definitely check it out. Mariko Tamaki is going to give you something good no matter what she's writing, so absolutely check it out. Next is the next short story I read for awards season. This is Three Faces of Beheading by Arkady Martine. Arkady Martine is mostly known for the memory called Empire and that duology. So I think that it's the Takes Kalan duology. Takes Kalan? Duology. It's well loved. I think it's won Hugo Awards. And I think the only reason that this has been nominated for awards is because who the author is. This was shit. I am sorry. This was garbage. And Arkady Martine, there's an interview in the Uncanny magazine issue where this story came in. Like, another author interviews her, and she talks about how this was what she wrote when she could not write. This is her desperate flailing at trying to bring creativity back into her life, and it should have stayed in the draft. It's just like, it's supposed to take place in this like VR game, and this like character, like there's a beheading, but then stuff happens, and I literally don't even know what it was about. Don't even know what she was trying to say. It was not good. And just because someone is who they are doesn't mean they should be published, let alone nominated for fucking Hugo. Like, no, this was bad. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sure there are people who liked it, but I just thought it was bad. I gave it 1.5 stars because I didn't hate it, but it was not good. It just wasn't. So, yeah, that sucked. Okay, next, what did not suck is Lucky Day by Chuck Tingle. I got this as an ARC on NetGalley, so thanks to NetGalley and Tor.com, no, Tor Nightfire for this. I love Chuck Tingle. My husband loves Chuck Tingle. We are Tingle horror fans, and also like the erotica fans, but mostly the horror fans. And this is another Chuck Tingle horror. It's good. I'm not going to say much here because I do want to write my full Goodreads review, get my thoughts in order, and then probably do a longer video reviewing this and also talking about Bury Your Gaze and Camp Damascus, because Chuck Tingle is writing each of these books tackling specific like facets and ways of how people are queer. And in this one, there's a lot to do with by erasure, and I just like, once I realized how the theming was working, I was just like, yes, thank you. The horror part of it is fucking bonkers. This is some Final Destination clown car ride shit. My jaw was on the ground reading some of the like first opening blush horror shit. It was crazy. And while I think this doesn't quite like the gore and the ridiculousness, the absurdity of the horror kind of like kept the horror from being too scary for me. So it is horror, but I don't think it was quite scary. There was some stuff that kind of like led into existential dread, and some of the horror, like existential dread is also another big theme here. And some of the horror, the reveals and stuff like that directly tied into those feelings. But I wasn't really scared the way I was with like some of the horror villains in Bury Your Gaze. That shit was terrifying. The fucking cigarette man, the smoker? No, thank you. I do plan to write a long review on Goodreads, and then I want to do a video on Chuck Tingle's books. So if you've liked his books, go for this one. For me, Camp Damascus and Bury Your Gaze were 5 stars, but Lucky Day I think is like 4 stars for me. So, which I'll talk about in a longer review. There's, like I said, the horror wasn't as scary, and there's some character stuff that, or world stuff that didn't quite work for me, but it was still 4 stars. I still really liked it. The majority of the experience was fun for me. So definitely check it out. If you like Chuck Tingle's horror at all, you are not going to be disappointed. But yeah, I do say though, if you have not read Chuck Tingle before, his horror, I say start with Camp Damascus. Camp Damascus, read it in the order. Camp Damascus, Bury Your Gaze, and then Lucky Day. He's doing some very specific thematic work in each one, and I think it's just so good. I really want to talk about it, so I'm gonna save the rest of any chatting for a future video. Lastly, I read The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. Part of why I was vlogging in July was because I wanted to vlog my thoughts on this. I gave it 3.5 stars. Closer to 4 stars, 3.75. I don't really do like quarter stars, but it would be a 3.75. I was headed into a real bad slump at the start of July. Then I started The Devils, and it like pulled me back up. The Devils is the reason why I read as much as I did in July, because it made me excited to read again. So, and that bled into everything else that I wanted to read. So I was picking up more books because The Devils, like, I was excited to read it. Now, it did take me longer because it was physical. I didn't have as much physical reading time, and it is a long book. it is a long book, which is part of the reason why I didn't I lost like a star rating for it. It is a long book. And so this is the story. Joe Abercrombie did the first Law World. I've only read the first trilogy in the first Law World. I'm like halfway through Best Served Cold, but I kind of put it down because I was starting to get slumpy and I didn't want to go into a bad place with that. So I'm going to go back to Best Served Cold at some point. But Joe Abercrombie writes grimdark. This has nothing to do with First Law World. So if you want to read this one, you're totally fine. This is a story. It takes place in like an alternate fantasy, like Renaissance era Europe. Troy is still a city. Elves exist. So we follow a monk who is given a new job, and that's to be the leader of this group of devils who are all people who have powers or evil in some way. There's a magician, there's an elf, there is a vampire, there's like a knight, and like a rogue kind of lady, and a werewolf. Oh, the werewolf! Oh, my love. Bigga, my love. She was so fucking funny and good. Anyways, it's a motley crew. It's a really ridiculous cast of characters. They're tasked with taking this young girl, Alex, who is the long lost princess of Troy, essentially. They're tasked with taking her from probably somewhere in like the Holy City, so probably Vatican City, taking her all the way to Troy, which is essentially on the, if you know where Troy is, it is the very western shore of Turkey, which is a long way to go. So the devils are forced to get together and take her to Troy and put her on the throne. And there are lots of things going on along the way. There are people who want to stop them, want to kill her. We go through this whole thing where like the devils will start a travel. They'll meet like a small boss, small bad guy. They'll defeat him after like a big battle is happening. You think everybody's gonna die. Some big like magic or somebody's power is revealed, and then they survive. And then they like kind of limp along to the next thing, and then another boss happens, and then like there's another thing where they're almost gonna die, and then something happens that pulls them out a bit, and then they limp along, and then they get to the third boss, and it's just like it got a little repetitive after a while. And while I was enjoying myself, I really liked the characters. I liked that we got chapters from every character, and it was funny. There was some heart to it. Characters were connecting. The nature of the story itself, it just felt repetitive to me. That's part of where like the length of the book came in for me, is like there got to a point where I was like, we could have done without this whole section of the story. Even though it did like kind of move character relationships and character growth forward, I don't think we needed to do a whole section of that. We could have put it in other places, but I was still enjoying myself. And then we got to the last part, and the repetition really kicked into high gear in like the final climax. So Alex, for some reason, like I don't know why, but Abercrombie really liked his repetition in this book. In the climax, like Alex throughout the whole book, like her whole thing is like something happens and she's scared. She says, "Oh God." And there's times where she says it, you know, she turns around and there's a bad guy there and she's like saved and she's saying, "Oh God," the whole time. But the climax, she's saying it like every other line, every paragraph. "Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God." She's scared. She's terrified. She's screaming. She's quiet. "Oh God, oh God." And like, I was just like, if I have to see these words one more time, I'm going to scream. And then it did. And I just closed the book and I put it down for a moment so I could scream internally. And then I picked it back up and went back to reading because it was very compelling. So that's the thing. Like, I was still having a good time, but there were moments where I was just like, why? Why are you doing this? Because it's impacting how I feel in this moment. You're taking me out of this fucking story, Abercrombie. And I don't want to be taken out of the story. I just want to follow the devils so they can save the world. Or not the world. It wasn't even the world, no. So they can save the day and then go along their business. And thing is, it's so easy to remember that frustration. But I really enjoyed most of the book. Like, I loved Viga and that take on the werewolf. That was great. She was a fantastic character. But yeah, I liked it. I forgot that I was reading a Joe Abercrombie book when I got to the end. So I was very upset. Like, I was like, I got to the end, and Joe Abercrombie was doing his Abercrombie grimdark thing, and I was like, oh, right. This is fucking Joe Abercrombie. There's no happy ending here. It just, life goes on. And I was upset, and then also like talking myself through that memory of how he writes and what he writes. And it was just like a weird seesaw of like feelings at the end. But yeah, I will read the second book. I will buy and read the second book because I liked the world. I liked the characters. I'm very interested to see where it goes. And there's like a final chapter that happens, and I'm very curious about that character and how things are going to move forward here. I am so fucking curious about that character. So very promising. This would make a really good TV show. I think with the repetition and stuff like that, I would have forgiven that a lot more if it was like a TV show. But this is very episodic. This would be a good, like, you know, like 6-7 episode series on the BBC or something like that. Like, I give it 3.5, probably closer to a 4, but it was still a good time. Like, I still enjoyed it. It pulled me kicking and screaming out of my reading slump. So I'm very happy that it did that for me. So yeah, that's everything I read in July. Wow, I talked a lot more than I thought I would. So yeah, I got nothing else. I need to get to bed now. So let me know what you thought about anything I read. Tell me what your best book was that you read in July. I would like to hear that. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you next time. Bye.